All right, it's our regular Tuesday feature now. We've done this all season, I guess. It's something that I thought about doing for a couple years, but never really got around to doing it. But we're doing it now. It's the Tuesday edition of the Morning Pitt, where we look back at Pat Narduzzi's weekly press conference on Monday and talk about what Narduzzi talked about. We pick out 5 clips, sometimes 4, sometimes 6. Who knows? This week we got 5, although we'll tie them into some different things. 5 clips from what Pat Narduzzi talked about on Monday, and then we react to them. And sometimes it's, oh, darn it, I just realized I forgot to update the slideshow there and put some Louisville photos in. I'll get that done. That'll be on my list for list of things to do today. I'll get that slideshow updated. But we take some of Pat Narduzzi's comments. Sometimes we use it as a jumping off point to talk about those topics. Sometimes we question what he's saying. Sometimes we just marvel at it. And, sometimes we bring up clips for different reasons. But we got 5 clips today on some of the biggest topics of the week for Pitt as the Panthers move from the loss to Louisville on Saturday into this coming Saturday's game against Boston College at Acrisure Stadium. Back-to-back home games here for the Panthers. Games that probably should be winnable. We'll actually talk about that because Pat Narduzzi had a quote that I think was hinting at how winnable that Louisville game should have been, but it wasn't because they blew it. So we'll talk about that more. So what did Pat Narduzzi say yesterday? What stood out in his weekly press conference? Let's break it down here on the Tuesday edition of the Morning Pitt. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, I don't think there was any question about where we were going to go with the questions to Pat Narduzzi at his press conference yesterday. Narduzzi started off with a long opening statement. We'll get into that in a second, but I don't think anybody had any doubts that the first question, I know the first question I wanted to ask, and I assume it's the first question everyone in the building wanted to ask, or maybe not in the building, but actually maybe some people in the building wanted to ask the question too, but everybody in the room, all the media there, certainly wanted to ask the question, what's going to happen at quarterback this week? Of course, storyline there being Eli Holstein threw 2 more interceptions against Louisville in that loss. Some crucial plays that really did turn the outcome of that game and turn the momentum in the course of events in that game. And he got pulled after the second interception. He actually played one more series. I keep thinking, he got pulled after the second interception. Excuse me. I was looking at his first interception. I thought they happened on back-to-back series. They didn't. He threw an interception on Pitt's second drive of the second half. Pitt got a first down on the next drive and then failed on 4th and 7. And then Pitt's third drive of the half, Eli Holstein threw his second interception, and that was the end of the day for him. He got benched in that game. Really, the last time I can remember Pat Narduzzi benching a starting quarterback for performance reasons in the middle of a game. I mean, you could say David Lynch in the bowl game, but prior to that, I was trying to think, maybe. Yeah, I mean, okay, I think Eli Holstein came out last year at SMU, but that was a game where they were getting blown out. I think, in a non-blowout situation, benching a quarterback in the middle of a game for performance reasons, I really think you might have to go back to 2017. I mean, I'd have to think about 2020 if Joey Yellen got benched for Nick Patty or something like that. But in terms of being benched for performance reasons in a game that wasn't a blowout, you might have to go back to 2017 with Max Brown and Ben DiNucci and then Kenny Pickett, obviously ultimately coming in and replacing all of those guys and getting the starting nod. So, what happens now? I mean, I think this was the biggest question coming out of the weekend. I think this was the biggest question for Pat Narduzzi. And so I asked him, as soon as his opening statement ended, Pat, what's your approach with the quarterback position this week and on Saturday? How do you approach the quarterback position this week and on Saturday?
We're gonna watch practice. We're gonna get better and see where it goes.
Pat, what do you need to see better from Eli?
Consistency. I just think just where his eyes are and put the ball where the open receivers are. Let it go.
Maybe any consideration given to starting Cole or Mason this week?
We're not going to discuss that right now, but right now Eli's our starting quarterback.
I mean, Eli goes through a game where he throws 2 interceptions and gets benched. How do you have to approach it with him this week so that he doesn't end up being too safe? You want him to play his game, right? But he's now
the most recent game, he got pulled
That's
under.
the emotional part of the game, Chris. We just got to, sit back, take a deep breath, and that was last week. This is this week, and refocus.
So I pieced a few questions and answers together there. Like I said, that was the first question. You heard Narduzzi's quote. We're going to watch practice, get better, and see where it goes. After a couple questions about some other topics, the quarterback conversation came up again. What do you need to see from Eli Holstein? Quote, consistency. I just think where his eyes are and put the ball where the open receivers are, let it go. Any consideration given to starting Cole Gonzalez or Mason Heinchel? Quote, we're not going to discuss that right now, but right now Eli is our starting quarterback. And I also included one more question I asked. Eli Holstein just got benched, for performance. Like, how, if you move forward with him as your starting quarterback, how do you make sure he doesn't go into it looking over his shoulder, saying, if I throw an interception, I might get benched, or if I throw 2 picks, I'm coming out, and then he gets overly cautious or he presses too much. How do you balance that? And I mean, the reality is there's no way to balance that. The reality is if you're the coach, there's not really much you can do. You can offer all the support. You can offer all the confidence you want. You could say to Eli Holstein, I believe in you 110%, and you're our guy, and we believe in you. You're the one that's going to get us to all the wins in the promised land and everything. But the reality is, just a couple days ago, you benched the guy. Now, he needs to be, he needs to have thick skin and be tough and all that kind of stuff, but you benched him in the not too distant past. And that's got to be lingering there. I don't know what's going to happen this Saturday. Maybe it'll be based on practice. Maybe they'll have a rotation. Maybe it'll be a plan. I don't know what they're going to do. I've watched the same thing you have. I've watched Eli Holstein throw 5 interceptions this season. I've watched Eli Holstein throw 3 of his 5 interceptions in the red zone and basically at the goal line. 2 of them in the end zone and 1, at the 2, right, on a play that started at the 4. So, I've seen all of that just like you've seen all of that. And I think what I've said a bunch of times, and I said it yesterday, I said it after the game on Saturday, I think I wrote it, there's probably a really good quarterback in Eli Holstein somewhere in there, and I think we've seen it at times, right? But I don't know if Pat Narduzzi has the time this season to wait around for it to come out. Now, whether that means you go to Cole Gonzalez, I don't know, because he hasn't looked all that great in his playing time. Whether that means you go to Mason Heinchel, I don't know, because he's a true freshman, although he looks promising. I don't know what the best option is. I think there's downsides to all of them. I came into the season feeling really good about Pitt's quarterback room, but a big part of that was hinging on Eli Holstein growing and evolving and improving, and that hasn't really happened this year. So we'll see, but that's what Pat Narduzzi had to say yesterday. Now, when Pat Narduzzi started his press conference yesterday, usual opening statement, quick recap of the last game, quick preview of the upcoming opponent, usually takes a few minutes. Well, it was a long opening statement because at one point Narduzzi got into a stretch of talking about all the good things Pitt did on Saturday. And I pieced these together from a couple different comments he made all in his opening statement before he was asked a single question. And it was like a really long clip when I pieced it together, 2.5 minutes or something like that. So I did you the solid of speeding it up so we can all get through this in a minute.
I'll start with defense, probably the highlight of the day. Just the way we stopped the run. Okay, because we didn't stop the run against them last year. I think it was maybe 176 yards. So this year we stopped the run, and it didn't stop the pass as much as I like, but we did make them one-dimensional, and we got a chance to win the football game. Offensively we came out and started fast in a 10-play drive, take it down the field, get all the way down there on 3rd down and whatever it was, 5 or 6, and we got drop pass and probably the best drive of the day is how we opened up. So we started fast. I like that. But I thought we looked pretty efficient in the first half, and I thought the second half was not acceptable by any means, and that's where we got it. So good things there. Again, some positive things, some of the good stuff. Pitt, we averaged 3.5 per rush. Okay, I know you guys had a rushing question. Okay, we averaged 3.5 per rush. They averaged 1.6. Okay, I mean per play. Okay, and I will say this: I went back and looked. They were 60% pass. We were 58% pass. So I think someone asked the question about running the ball more. 60-40. I don't care, run or pass, whatever it is. I think it's a pretty good number to be at. So I think that was questions Saturday afternoon that I couldn't really answer because I didn't know what the number was there. But so we were if we're 70 anything over 70 high, that's a high number for run or pass. But when you're in the 60-40s, I'm feeling pretty good about the mixture up. And again, there's some runs we even had called where if they line up in front, you just can't run it. You got to check to a pass and all those things. So that stuff happens as we go. Passing wise, we average 8.1 yards per pass. They average 6.6 per pass. Okay, and again, I'm giving these things for a reason. Total plays every play we average 6.2 per play. They average 4.6.
I don't know if Pat Narduzzi realizes the point he actually made when he went through all the good things Pitt actually did in the loss to Louisville. I don't know if he realizes what he was really saying. Because it's something I've said a couple times after the West Virginia game and after the Louisville game. And it's all some version of Pitt wasted an opportunity. And they wasted an opportunity in both of those games. Not just because of what I think of Louisville and West Virginia, but because of how Pitt played and how close they were to getting out with a win. That they really did blow a lot of opportunities, that they had a lot of chances to win both of those games. And in many respects, they were the better team in some of the performance metrics and some of the different things. You heard all the stats and offense and defense that he rattled off there about the Louisville game. I mean, you can find similarities in the West Virginia game as well. And ultimately, the point Pat Narduzzi's making is that they screwed it up. They had a win, and really it's 2 wins, and they screwed it up both times. Even though they did all these good things, they screwed it up. And there's a lot of ways that you screw it up like that. There's a lot of there are a lot of fathers to that particular unpleasant child, I guess would be a nice way to say it. But they screwed it up. And when you run down the laundry list of how you outgain them and you average, you could look, Eli Holstein averaged 2 more yards per attempt than Miller Moss. Yeah. He also threw 2 interceptions, and Moss only threw 1. But, I mean, you can find all these stats that seem to favor Pitt. And you say, well, how'd you lose the game then? No, you screwed it up. You took too many penalties at West Virginia. You blew a bunch of opportunities against Louisville. That's the point you're making when you talk about how good you played and how you outgained them and all these things. Now, one of the things Pitt lost in that game was Keith Gouveia, the starting left guard, suffered a pretty bad knee injury. You saw it. He got the air cast. He got carted off. He's done for the season. Here's what Pat Narduzzi said about Gouveia and the offensive line situation going forward.
Keith, unfortunately, is out for the year. Meant to mention that in my opening statement, but I got too long anyway. But Keith's out for the year with the lower leg, as you guys saw on game day, and it's disappointing. He's a super kid. He's a tough dude. We're obviously, it's a tough loss, just like any one of your starters. It's a tough loss. So, but, we'll regather, work the depth chart, and see where we go from there.
What do you like about Coretta in that spot?
Coretta's, he's played both. He's played center, he's played guard, and I just think he's the best guy. He's one of the 5 best guys to put in there. We got guys behind him. Isaiah Montgomery will be ready, Tyree will be ready, and Jackson Brown will be ready. So those, we got 3 other guys that have played football for us. I shouldn't say Tyree's played on the field goal team, but those other 2 have been in games. Matter of fact, Jackson played tackle for us last year in this game. So we'll be ready to roll, and it's a next man up mentality as everybody is in the country.
So it's Ryan Coretta stepping in there at the starting left guard spot. He was the guy who replaced Gouveia in the Louisville game after Gouveia got hurt. I think we thought it would be interesting to see kind of what shakes out with the depth, because Coretta was, as Pat Narduzzi said, the backup center behind Lyndon Cooper. Apparently also the top reserve at left guard, or at least the long-term reserve at left guard. He goes into that spot now. He'll probably still be an emergency center, I would think, but they also listed, I believe it's Isaiah Montgomery at, let me just check, as a co-backup with Ryan Coretta. Oh, no, actually the top backup with Ryan Coretta at center. So it's Lyndon Cooper, Isaiah Montgomery, Ryan Coretta as your depth chart. At center, at left guard, it's Ryan Coretta and Jackson Brown. Tyree also shows up on the depth chart as an or backup at right guard, which is where Montgomery was. So a little bit of shifting there. No shifting in the quarterback depth chart, but they did move the offensive line around to account for Keith Gouveia being out for the season. Shout out to Pat Narduzzi for changing the depth chart before they announced Gouveia being out for the season. A remarkable amount of transparency that he confirmed 10 or 11 minutes later. But that's the case on the offensive line. And it's tough. I mean, you knew an injury was going to happen at some point. They've been relatively healthy on the offensive line thus far. Guys getting banged up in games, but nobody missing extended time. Now Gouveia is going to be out for the season. We'll see what Ryan Coretta can do as a redshirt sophomore, stepping in there at the left guard spot. On the other side of the ball, man, guys are banged up all over the place. I mean, Pitt's defense from the very start, from training camp, they had Jeremiah Marcelin and Jaden Bonsu out, when Jaden Moore missed extended time. And then you just start rolling through, and guys are, Rashad Battle plays in the opener and doesn't play again until the Louisville game. Tamon Linham's missed the last 2 games. Rashawn Murray was out on Saturday. So now your cornerback depth, I'll go through position by position, but I asked Pat Narduzzi, you getting concerned about your depth on defense?
Yeah, I'm always concerned about our depth. I mean, every week it's a throughout the last 10 years, it's always you're every week plugging something up, and you got a weakness here or there. You got to cover up for it. I mean, we had a true freshman corner play 93 snaps on defense and 8 on special teams a week ago, 3 weeks ago now. So you're always concerned with that, but we'll be okay. I thought Kavir Baines came in and played a heck of a game.
So if you're keeping track at home. Let's see if I can do this all off the top of my head. I don't have it written. I mean, I have it written down somewhere, but it's not right in front of me. Let's see off the top of my head. So, start in front of the defensive line. Jaden Moore has not dressed for a game yet. This is 4 games in after he had some kind of injury in training camp, right? During the game, Blaine Spires went out in the first quarter. Didn't really get hurt on a play or seemingly get hurt on a play. He just wasn't playing anymore, and he didn't play for the entire I think the entire final 3 quarters. Zach Crothers got a pretty bad leg injury too, which he was able to walk off, but he was in a lot of pain. He went down and immediately ripped his helmet off and was sort of yelling and screaming. So I mean that was a rough one. So that's three defensive ends, 3 guys that would probably be in your top 4 or at worst top 5. At defensive end that you're missing. At linebacker, you had your whole depth sapped when Jeremiah Marcelin and Jaden Bonsu were lost for the season in training camp. At corner, they got a little bit healthier. They got Rashad Battle back for this game against Louisville. He hadn't played since Duquesne, but they still didn't have Tamon Linham or Rashawn Murray. So that's still down a couple of guys. And then at safety, Javon McIntyre went out. And McIntyre went out. They brought in Kavir Baines Marquez. He played pretty well. I thought he made a lot of good, solid solo tackles. I don't know Pitt's coverage schemes well enough to know who was leaving guys open. I know that on one of the bigger pass plays they made, I think it was a 15-yard pass or something it wasn't. It was a little bit of a longer pass. It was on 3rd down against their Delta package. Alan Bryant was in because Javon McIntyre was out. But if you go front to back, just from that last game, with the guys who weren't able to play, the guys who were ruled out, and the guys who were lost during the game, I mean, you have 3 defensive ends, 2 deep linebackers, 2 corners, Lineham and Murray, and a safety. That's 8 2-deep players on defense who, were unavailable for that entire game, or were not able to play that entire game. Either they were ruled out before the game or they were, got hurt during the game. That's a tough spot. And you wonder why Pitt's pass rush suffered. I mean, Blaine Spires was playing pretty well. I think he had a sack and a tackle, 1.5 tackles for loss or something like that in the first quarter. I mean, he was off to a good start in that game on Saturday. And then he gets hurt and he doesn't play again. Zach Crothers has been one of the bright spots, I think, at defensive end for Pitt this season. He gets hurt. He's out. We'll see what the availability for both of those guys is this week. Jaden Moore, despite never wearing a uniform yet for a game, is still listed as an or starter at defensive end, so got that one. They need some of these guys back for sure, but that depth is being tested. It's being really tested right now. All right, last thing I want to bring up, because Pat Narduzzi was asked about the play after Blue Hicks had the 56-yard pass. And you know exactly what play this is, right? They get the 56-yard pass to Blue Hicks. He's down at the 4. 1st and goal from the 4. All the momentum's coming back. Pitt's up by a touchdown at this point. It's 27-20. All the momentum's coming back. And Pat Narduzzi early in his press conference talked about how, they got off to a great start at 17-0, and then Louisville kind of took some of the momentum, and then Pitt took the momentum back before they lost it again. This was the moment where they lost it. And you know what play I'm talking about? 1st and goal from the 4. Eli Holstein tries to throw to Juelz Goff. The pass is either ill-timed or ill-thrown, but it gets intercepted on a pretty incredible play. I mean, the guy who made the interception did a heck of a job picking that one off. But that was really, I think, the momentum when the momentum truly turned. I mean, Louisville didn't score on the ensuing drive. They scored on their next drive. After that, they scored the touchdown to tie the game. And then Eli Holstein threw his second interception 2 plays after that game-tying touchdown. But this interception at the goal line, I mean, it could have put Pitt ahead by 2 touchdowns and late in the third quarter, and I think they probably would have held on and won that game. So what happened there? Why call that pass? Why not run the ball? Well, Pat Narduzzi was asked, and here's what he said.
Why throw there?
It's great question, because that's what the offense coordinator wanted to do. We're averaging 6.6. We lined up. What personnel group were we in? Not sure. Okay, again, that's coach's deal. We're in 12 personnel. How often do we get in 12 personnel? Not very often. Okay, over the last 2 years, we've been 100% run in that formation, in that personnel grouping. So why? Because you build tendencies to break tendencies, and it was open too. So we just got to throw a better ball.
So I like to make spreadsheets. Well, I like to keep notes, right? This is the game. Here's that interception. I'm not gonna give away the good stuff. I like to keep notes. So when Pat Narduzzi says, when they line up in 12 personnel with 1 running back and 2 tight ends, all they do is run. They only ever run for the last 2 years when they're in 12 personnel. Now, I couldn't find all my notes from last year, so I couldn't go through every game where they ran 12 personnel in 2024, but I do have it all from this year, and he's right. They ran 8 plays out of 12 personnel this season, including that interception. That's 2 tight ends on the field. In the previous 7, including 1 play against Louisville, they ran the ball every single time. And they were all like goal-to-go situations. They had one against Duquesne. It was a 3rd and goal from the 1. 2 tight ends. Juelz Goff ran in for a touchdown. Central Michigan, it was 2nd and goal from the 2. Goff was stopped for 0, and then they tried it again, and he got 2 yards, and he got the touchdown. West Virginia, it was 2nd and goal from the 2. Jakirian Turner got 1, and on the next play, they kept that personnel grouping out there, and Eli Holstein ran in for the touchdown. They had that 12 personnel package out there for the Wildcat snap when Deuce Spann did that against West Virginia. So I'm including that because they ran the play, even though it came back on a holding call. And then against Louisville, they had a 3rd and 1 from the 4. They came out in 12 personnel. Jalen Williams got the handoff. He gained nothing. 4th and 1, they were going to go for it, but I think they took a false start, so that changed the plan. So 7 snaps this season, 6 prior to the Louisville game. Every single one of them was a run. And, you heard Pat Narduzzi, you build tendencies to break tendencies. I get that. Good call. Sometimes I think coaches outsmart themselves, and they, they knew we were going to do that, or they expected us to do it, so we did something different. But for the most part, I think that's a good plan. I think it's solid. You build tendencies to break tendencies, and then you use the opponent's knowledge against them. You go into every game assuming the opponent has scouted everything you do, and they took notes and everything like that, and they're ready for most of the looks you're going to give them. So you give them a look based on the knowledge that they have, and then you go against type. Great plan. I think that's good. That's solid work. I don't know, philosophically, I don't know if I would do it in this situation, not just because of the outcome, but 1st and goal from the 4, I probably would just hand it off and run. But, okay, they know we're going to run. We're going to do something different. Cool. So they come out in 12 personnel. They line up in the pistol, which we don't see many pistol snaps out of this offense. I don't track that as well as I should. I'd have to go back through every play of the season and track pistol or straight shotgun or anything like that. I tend to mark down if they're in an empty set, but I don't mark the pistol as often where the running back lines up behind the quarterback. So they come out in the pistol, which may be unique. Actually, maybe I should go look at these other 7, 12 personnel plays, these 2 tight end plays, and see if they ever use the pistol there. So they come out in the pistol, a unique look. They've got this 2 tight end set, which typically means run. They snap the ball, and here's where I think they missed the mark. they don't go play action. Now, for that pass, the pass to Juelz Goff, you don't want to go play action, because if you do, chances are somebody's going to, be close to him and get a hand on him and disrupt the timing of the pass. But if you are in that situation, you've got your 12 personnel out there, which was Kenny Johnson, Blue Hicks, Malachi Thomas, Justin Holmes, and Juelz Goff, right? So two receivers, two tight ends, and one running back. You run play action to get everyone diving on the running back, and then you throw, the little corner route to the tight end, something in the flat to the tight end. One of those kind of passes where you take advantage of, like, if they know your tendencies and they expect you to run, you show play action so they bite, so they take a step forward and give Malachi Thomas an opening, give Justin Holmes an opening. I don't think you send the running back immediately on a pass route, because now, even if they were set up for run before the snap, I don't think you're maximizing the situation as much as you could. They know we're going to run, so we're not going to use play action. I think if a team knows you're going to run, or your tendencies indicate that you're going to run out of this formation or that personnel grouping or in this situation, I think you use play action to get them to take an extra step to commit to it and get something open behind them. I still would have run anyway. I still would have handed the ball off. You're at the 4. You've got first and goal. I would have handed the ball off. Shoot, you could have play action, bootleg out to the side. Eli Holstein probably could make it to the end zone, 4 yards. So I get the tendencies. You build them to break them. I understand what you were going for there. Just not sure it was. And who knows? If Eli Holstein puts that pass on the mark to Juelz Goff, maybe we're all sitting here talking about how great a call it was. But, because, he was open. But it seems like there were better ways to go about it, or easier ways to go about it. I don't know. All right, one easy thing you can do is like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We have these Morning Pitt videos every day of the week. Our live show every Wednesday night. We've got a post-game show after the game on Saturday, so you make sure you tune in for that. And all kinds of other video content. So check it out. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and then head over to the website, Panther-Lair.com. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you enjoyed these little, what stood out in Pat Narduzzi's press conference. I think they're fun to do. I enjoy doing them, and hopefully you do too. So thanks for checking it out. Have a good rest of your Tuesday, and we will catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pit here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.